Armchair Cinema. I'm Jason. This is Maren.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about the film Mickey 17. Maren, what did you think of Mickey 17?
I had a lot of fun with it. It was a great fun time. I've always really liked Robert Pattinson. Honestly, even when I went back and watched Twilight for the first time, it's a book I would have liked if I was a little less self-hating in middle school. But anyway,
there was a lot of things we could have done if we weren't self-hating in middle school.
Yeah. So anyway, Robert Pattinson, I've always really liked him, and he delivers an outstanding performance. Easily a career best.
There's plenty of him to go around this time too.
Oh yeah. Anyways.
Yeah,
career best performance, and I also have been following the work of Bong Joon-ho for a while. I've only seen That's the one I haven't seen that everyone else has seen. I've only seen Snowpiercer and The Host, but most people haven't seen The Host.
You've seen more than I have. I've seen a bit of The Host.
Yeah.
I have not seen Snowpiercer, but I did see Parasite.
Okay, see. Everyone's seen Parasite but me.
You're the odd one out this time.
I'm the odd one out this time. But yeah, so I obviously knew what to expect going in. I heard someone say this was Bong Joon-ho's first complete English feature. Do you know if that's the case?
I have no idea.
Okay, because I thought Snowpiercer was like entirely English, but no, there is a Korean character in the film who speaks Korean. So, yeah, I think this might be Bong Joon-ho's first completely, fully English language feature. It's kind of cool. Really cool that we have a Korean filmmaker who's making movies for American audiences. Brings some real fresh vibes to American cinema.
I think it's something we desperately need.
Oh,
we need people on the outside telling us how messed up we are.
Yeah, right. The satire, of course, is thick and heavy, as it should be in a movie like this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I thought it was a really fun time, really funny movie.
Okay, so Robert Pattinson is Mickey.
Mm-hmm.
Mickey is an what's the word I'm looking for?
Expendable.
Yes, expendable. He is expendable, which means that whenever he dies in his job, they can just print off a new one and put him back to work. He is never completely dead.
Yeah, they have all his memories constantly being recorded and uploaded so that he never loses a continuity of himself. He's always got all his memories and his personality intact, with hand-wavy science fiction stuff. And yeah, so he works in an off-world colony. It's a brand new planet that they've discovered, and they're trying to colonize it.
The planet called Nephilim.
Nephilim, yes.
Which is, I don't know, on the nose a little bit.
Yeah. Niflheim.
Nephilim is
yes.
Is
Nephilim are the
thing.
yeah. I thought that felt a little off, but yeah, Niflheim.
Okay, Niflheim. All right.
Yes, Niflheim. And it's worth noting that the leader of this expedition is a failed politician, who has some contemporary qualities.
You don't say.
Yeah. In fact, that's one of my very few criticisms with the movie. Mark Ruffalo plays. Do you remember his name?
Schmald Schmump.
That's kind of my problem, because the character as written, if you pay attention to the roles the character serves within the narrative and within the network of symbols that forms the satire, the character isn't necessarily just Donald Trump. He's also Elon Musk. He's also a composite of a bunch of other inept leaders. There's more than one inept leader in the world, and Mark Ruffalo plays this character with a very pronounced Donald Trump affect. But given the fact his dialogue is already written with a little bit of Trump's speech patterns woven throughout it, I think that's sort of like pointing the neon sign at one tiny part of what is a much more interesting composite figure. So it's kind of limiting what the audience is expected to see out of this character. People aren't going to be as readily comparing Mark Ruffalo's character to Elon Musk, even though narratively speaking, he's a lot more Musk-like than he is Trump-like.
That's interesting, because I guess I'm an example of that, because I couldn't see anyone else but Donald Trump on this character.
Right.
That I'm not sure that's an issue with the movie or just an issue with me.
I think it's an issue with Mark Ruffalo's performance. Because you look at what the character does, right? He leads a colonial expedition to a planet because it feeds his ego. That's what Musk wants to do with Mars.
Okay, that is very that's an app. Yes. It is.
Yeah. So I feel like as much as I did enjoy his performance, and I enjoy anything that gets to poke fun at our inept leaders, I do think it's a little frustrating that it's like we're going to laser focus in on it just being Trump with this performance.
I know that I read on Wikipedia, the source of all knowledge on the internet,
Of course.
that the director did say that he was a composite of different contemporary leaders.
Yeah.
So it could just me being very much so American
Yeah.
and not recognizing other people's the leaders of other people.
Right. I do think, though, that Bong Joon-ho very likely was focused very closely on Musk and Trump specifically, given the fact that those seem to be the two biggest influences on the character. He's a business owner in tech and has this ego project. And also he's doing a lot of stuff with, what's the word I'm looking for?
Religion?
Untested and poorly manufactured technology. It's another one of my favorite bits throughout the movie is pretty much every automated piece of technology glitches. The automatic doors sometimes glitch up. There's this it's near the end of the movie, you see that, where yeah. And when Mickey's getting 3D printed out, it never goes out smoothly. There's always a hitch.
Yeah.
So there's this sort of idea that it's rushed engineering, which has kind of become a hallmark of both SpaceX and
The Trump administration.
Tesla.
And Tesla.
Yeah. So yeah, I always thought that was a fun connection there.
Since we're on the subject of politics and idiot politicians, I couldn't help but think that this film was meant to release earlier.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the election had gone differently, if the ending wouldn't have been so optimistic.
I don't think the ending would have changed. I think that the movie very much was written with the idea that Trump would not win the presidency. Yeah. I mean, given especially the fact that the Mark Ruffalo's character failed to win in 2 elections, right?
Yes.
It seems very pointed to me, like the writer maybe intended a world where Trump had lost 2 elections.
And plot spoilers, we're getting into that. At the end, the leader is a black woman.
Yes, I did notice that as well. Yeah.
I put in my notes that that this film is obviously trying to tell you something, and if you think it's not, you're probably one of the idiots making fun of.
Yeah, exactly.
I was actually kind of shocked because I saw Parasite and I thought,
yeah,
what a bleak film. The film doesn't have anything really positive to say about the nature of capitalism and the world in which we live in. This one takes it in a more jovial tone.
Yeah, I think this actually ties into something else I wanted to mention. I've heard some people say that the movie is a bit disappointing and that it doesn't go far enough in critiquing capitalism and that sort of idea is de-emphasized in the narrative. And I think that's a fundamental misunderstanding of what the movie is trying to be. I don't think the movie is trying to be, here's the problems with capitalism. I think the movie starts with the premise, capitalism has problems. Now, how do we move forward from that? How do we fix that? How do we fight that?
I put in my notes that with such dark themes and emphasis on gallows humor, you'd think this movie would be bleak and unrelentingly grim, but it actually has a pretty optimistic message to it. Yes, Mickey represents the expendable worker in a toxic cycle of work and death to appease the ever-hungry rich, but he's still human. And he's surrounded by other human workers who can, at any time they choose, seize the means of production. And
they really do at the end. I mean, the black woman who winds up being the leader is
Nasha, right?
Nasha, yes, is in the working class along with Mickey, granted on a higher place in the hierarchy, but still definitively working class, living in the same kinds of quarters Mickey is, eating the same limited rations. There's that sense of solidarity amongst all the workers that is woven throughout the movie.
So, yeah, a very optimistic ending for something that you would expect to, especially with the premise. You'd think that it's going to hit you heavy-handed with these themes and give you something to sulk about on your way home.
Right. But it kind of just starts with that, and then is like, okay, now what? Now how do we move forward? How do we solve the oppression? How do we? And that's what I think is really cool about the movie is it is so much about how to move forward from oppression. So I do want to talk about the way that the ending shakes out. So you want to go to spoilers?
We've been in spoiler territory for a while now.
Okay. So, about halfway-ish through the movie. Well, it's actually, technically, it's at the beginning, but there's this weird non-linear structure going on. About halfway through the movie is when it becomes relevant that Mickey 17, the titular Mickey, manages to miraculously, well, not miraculously, but manages to survive what should have been a death scenario, an inevitable death.
He should have been eaten.
He should have been eaten. There are indigenous creatures on Niflheim called creepers, which, by the way, sidebar, the design on the creepers, outstanding. A perfect, like, towing of the line between adorable and creepy, right? Because they're, like, tardigrade inspired, but there's some, like, ways they're animated in the way that they move that is, like, adorable, dog-like, you know, the way that filmmakers tend to do.
It does do a good, like, when you first see them, you do expect them to be like bugs, and you expect them to like want to kill and eat everything.
Yeah.
But when the other shoe drops, and you see that they're not like that, they're cute and they have lots of intelligence in them. You don't have any problem looking at them and saying, "Oh, this is not a bad guy. This is cute."
Right. So anyway, they save Mickey 17 from certain death, basically. And he makes it back to the Colonial Expedition. And now they've already printed Mickey 18. So now we have two Mickeys. Because of the sort of Christo-fascist vibes of this expedition being headed up by a Christian religious leader that's emblematic of Trump and Musk, it is doctrine, law, whatever, that in this case you just kill them both and wipe the slate clean. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of the way you do it.
It's easier that way.
Basically, yeah. The idea is it's against God to have one soul inhabit two bodies is the way that they rationalize it. So just kill them both and have... Now, so Mickey 18 and tries to kill Mickey 17, and Mickey 17 tries to kill Mickey 18. And through this process, we learn that Mickey 18 is a little different. He's a little more aggressive, more angry, more revolutionary.
Very much so, I would say.
Yeah. And in an absolutely wonderful scene, Nasha, who is also Mickey's romantic partner throughout all of his iterations, has a wonderful scene between the pair of them.
Threesome!
It's a lot of fun. I like Robert Pattinson. Two Robert Pattinsons, yes.
Just living the dream here for you.
Oh, absolutely. I was giddy when I saw that going down. And like one of them's all aggressive and domineering, and the other one's all meek, and I love it. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, and so then basically the rest of the movie kind of carries out this idea of Mickey 17 and Mickey 18 figuring out a kind of tenuous alliance to improve everyone's lives, basically. I mean, it's not as deliberate as that. Things kind of happen a little chaotically.
They don't really come together to start a revolution. They come together out of necessity. Exactly.
But it does a good job of showing that to defeat oppression, you need a coalition of a variety of approaches and skill sets. You've got Mickey 17, who is a diplomat. He brings people together. He passes information between people. He builds diplomatic ties with the creepers. I wish there was a better name for that, but the movie does not give us a better name for these creatures.
The Niflheim natives.
The Niflheim people, the Niflheim natives. And then you have Mickey 18, who's like the direct action revolutionary, who at the end of the movie goes all suicide bomber and blows up Mark Ruffalo's character.
Which you can't help but just go, yes! The whole time.
Yeah, and then you have Nasha, who, like, you know, represents a sort of institutional power that can also be wielded, because she's actually like a security agent or something. And she gains institutional power and becomes a political leader at the end of the movie. And then you also have the scientists who are also working from within the social structure of this expedition. And are doing their own work in dismantling the damaging assumptions that Mark Ruffalo's character is spreading about the Niflheim natives. So yeah, I think it is a very strong idea of not just critiquing capitalism, but also how do we overcome the oppression and move towards a better state? By building this coalition and working together.
Not under one leader, but under a group of people that represent.
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually have a few criticisms. Do you have any criticisms?
I've already mentioned the Mark Ruffalo issue. I thought the nonlinear structure was a bit much. I think I would have preferred the movie. I don't think most people would have preferred the movie this way, but I would have preferred the movie this way if it was told more linearly. What that would have done is it would have made the first half of the movie kind of slow. Very classic sci-fi, where it's just like the first half of the movie is just all the exposition, And I understand that's not the way movies are made anymore, but like it would have felt a little more 2001: A Space Odyssey and a little less Star Wars-y, and that's fine.
I liked the narration.
Yeah.
But narration is a tough tool to wield in filmmaking, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Because when you have narration, it's very easy to start telling instead of showing.
Right.
Which I feel is bad film language.
It is.
That is essentially... You're supposed to show, not tell.
Right.
And I think I had a few issues with the film kind of doing that in places.
I could see that, yeah.
We see Mickey 18 in the narration tells us Mickey 18 is a psycho.
Right.
And we see that happen. But he also goes on to talk about how the other Mickeys have had some sort of different personalities as well.
Right.
I really would have preferred if we had seen like sort of like a montage of that, or just a very, very brief montage of the different behaviors of the different Mickeys that come out.
Yeah. I think that also would have been more naturally exposited if they had removed the nonlinear structure and told it more linearly, but
Yeah, I feel like they could have done more with the premise a little bit.
Yeah.
It's about Mickey 17 though.
Right.
So like killing him off and then having like a whole bunch of Mickeys come in after him.
Yeah.
Could have ruined that.
Yeah.
But I when you have a person that can't die,
right?
I feel like there's there's more you can do with it. It also kind of made the stakes a little bit difficult in places. Like they introduce Mickey 18 specifically to give the stakes.
Right, because then it introduces the idea that Mickey 17 is his own individual that isn't the same as Mickey 18, and we would be losing someone if Mickey 17 died.
Well, not just that, but also in the way that now there's actual stakes, because if they discover Mickey 18, both of them are dead.
Well, that too as well, yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, also there's reason for us to want Mickey 17 to survive, even if, for us not to want Mickey 18 to just kill Mickey 17. Mm-hmm. Because if we treated them as the same character, then logically it wouldn't matter who lived or died.
That's also not to say that narration was a bad thing.
Right.
Because what narration can do is it can give you insight into a character that it can't really show you. It makes him a lot more relatable and sympathetic.
Yeah.
If we can hear his internal thoughts. And we hear him say a couple times, "I don't want to die."
Right. Yeah, that definitely helps. And that's also obviously very important, the fact that he realizes that. Also there's another thing that stuck out to me as a little weird. Mm-hmm. So do you remember that almost subplot that wasn't like actually a subplot with the scientist lady wanting a Mickey?
Yes.
Isn't that a little bizarre?
I wouldn't call it bizarre as much as I would just say that it just sort of happened and then didn't go anywhere.
That's what I mean. It's just like, we're introducing this idea, and this could like legitimately be like a rom-com in its own right. Yeah. And then they're just like, oh no, never mind. Nasha gets to keep both Mickeys.
Mickey has a friend who is romantically interested in him after her lover dies. Mm-hmm. And when she discovers that there are two Mickeys, she kind of threatens to reveal them both and have them both killed. But says, I'll take one Mickey. Nasha, you can take the other Mickey.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really go anywhere.
No, it's just that one scene. It feels like it's just there so to get both Nasha and the other girl away from both Mickeys so that plot can move forward. Is very Kenneth Marshall. That's it. I've pulled up a list of the characters, so maybe we can get their names right. But yeah, I think it was Cameron Britton as Arcady. The problem is they didn't say a lot of these names very much.
No.
They really didn't.
Just Mickey and Nasha and whoever the leader person was, or Schmump as
Kenneth Marshall.
Kenneth Marshall.
So yeah, that was a little strange, like almost subplot that was just kind of like tossed aside for no reason.
Either someone in the editing room decided it wasn't important enough to keep going with, or it was like something they added in reshoots or something. But she does get a happy ending when we see at the end she has another lover.
Yeah, cute girl. Lesbians.
Hell yeah.
I find it really interesting that, unlike a lot of other clone movies that make a big deal about how the clone is like specifically a real separate individual, the Mickey 17 doesn't really suggest that Mickey 17 and 18 are entirely different, unique, separate individuals. Do you understand what I mean? Because it's a little iffy.
Sort of.
Like the whole subplot with them wanting to share Mickey, but then Nasha claims having an exclusive relationship with every Mickey because they're all Mickey, and the movie doesn't question that. And the movie doesn't necessarily question that Mickey 18 is less Mickey than Mickey 17 is, and that they're both Mickey. I mean, it doesn't suggest that they aren't both individuals worthy of, moral consideration. But it does kind of suggest that they are like the same soul in two different bodies.
I kind of get what you're saying, but I don't think it kind of does that. It raises the question, at least.
Right.
Especially when you have the explanation of how the whole doubles thing became a controversy in the first place.
Right.
But it does specifically go out and make Mickey 18 and Mickey 17 two separate characters.
Yes, they're definitely two separate characters, but it's almost like they're treated as the same person expressed through two different characters. Almost like the substance. But let's not go into that.
Jekyll and Hyde?
Jekyll and Hyde. It all goes back to Jekyll and Hyde.
Everything goes back to Jekyll and Hyde. Goes back to Jerry Lewis.
No.
That asshole.
No. Jekyll and Hyde.
Jekyll and Hyde.
It goes all the way back. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting that it seemed to deal with the idea of cloning slightly differently than you often see, where it's like the clone is definitely its own individual that deserves to be its own thing. It's a little more like, well, they're the same person, but they're two different persons.
That always brings me back to Fritz Lang.
Okay, where are you going with
Fritz
this one?
Lang loved the idea of the doppelganger.
Yeah.
Fritz Lang is the director behind M and Metropolis.
And probably others, but I'm not.
And others.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while. He also did Fury, which is a more blatant example of doppelganger.
Yeah.
But in his films, the main character one of the main characters at least will usually find a darker side to them and have to sort of battle with them.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's kind of what I see here is that
there's
a dark
little
side.
bit of that.
Instead of fighting his dark side, which he does a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah.
He kind of he finds his shadow and teams up with his shadow.
Yeah, which is really kind of cool and in its own way a little Jungian.
Ooh, Union.
Yeah, I just pulled out one of the old film school things. Every film school student's got to learn about Jung.
Well, we've referenced Fritz Lang and Jung. Where else can we go to make the pretentious film students happy?
Oh,
This would have made me happy as a film student.
Trying to think now. Is there anything we can pull out that's more film school style references? No, there's something about a dinner scene that's very old school film. There is a dinner scene.
Yeah, you know what that reminds me of?
Huh?
David Lynch in Eraserhead.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
You haven't seen
I
Eraserhead?
haven't seen Eraserhead.
What kind of film student are you?
I don't know. I saw Lost Highway. I saw Blue Velvet.
Okay, those are two David Lynch films I haven't seen, so
Okay.
you got that on me.
It's been a while since I've seen Blue Velvet, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think maybe when people are talking about how this film could use its symbolism a bit more, maybe that's what they're talking about is kind of like a lack of substance a little bit. because here we are trying to figure out more what else to say when
Well,
we've already gone through the film.
There is an entire subplot we have not mentioned.
Oh.
I'm surprised that you don't remember.
I remember.
The reason he signed up to be an expendable in the first place.
The Mafia.
The Mafia. So the reason that Robert Pattinson, and he had a friend and business associate, Timo? Something like that. Started a macaroons business, because they were going to be bigger than burgers.
Mm-hmm.
And got a business loan from some shady people. And these shady people are crazy sadistic and very fond of making what amounts to torture porn, both for presumably his own pleasure as well as a sign to other potential lenders to not cross him. And so they need to get off Earth, and obviously becoming an expendable on this expedition is the easiest way of doing that. His friend had a certification in whatever ships they were using, so he was able to become up like a pilot or something. It was like mentioned in 1 or 2 lines of dialogue.
Yeah.
So he managed to escape being an expendable. It's also interesting that Mickey was the only expendable. I was not expecting that from the premise. That's beside the point. So anyway, and his friend betrays him about 2/3 of the way through the movie. Tries to kill him on camera for the sake of this mafia boss to get him off his tail. It doesn't go much more beyond that, though.
It does show him at the end fighting off one of the Mafia goons.
To continue that happy ending. Does he survive? He survives, right?
Yeah, he survives, but he gets the ear of the Mafia.
Yeah, that was a fun shot.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also another bit of thematic coolness that we overlooked too, with Kenneth Marshall's wife and her sauce obsession.
I was wondering who exactly she's supposed to represent.
I don't know if she's as deliberate and analog as Kenneth Marshall is.
But I love the fact that she is smarter than him.
Yeah.
And she's kind of the one that is pulling his strings.
Yeah.
But he's still the face, and she is in love with that face.
And she's obsessed with sauces. Sauce. I mean, some of them are probably maybe sauces. It seems like she just carries a magic bullet wherever she goes and just stuffs random things into it and calls it a sauce after she blends it. Magic Bullet being the brand of handheld blender. Mm-hmm. Including cutting off the
tail of that little
Niflheim creature.
Yes, that was hard. That was a hard, quick scene, but hard.
Yeah, it just drops it right into the thing. Yeah.
Had to cringe at that. Just be like, oh.
Yeah.
I guess we talk about the fact that nobody's seen this movie.
Really? I haven't paid attention to the box office numbers.
Sadly, this movie hasn't gotten very far. It hasn't made very much money.
See it. Seriously.
It deserves to be watched, especially it's March right now. There's not very much coming out.
I mean, the only other movie I would even consider that's in theaters right now is probably The Day the Earth Blew Up. Well, we'll not go too far into that, but that's the new Looney Tunes movie. Oh my god.
Yeah. We're seeing that next, right? That's
yes, absolutely. We need to see that
next. Okay, good, because I was going to suggest that if you weren't going to say anything.
Yeah, no. I mean, I guess Novocaine looks fun, but whatever.
Anyways.
No.
Back on subject. We're professionals.
Mickey 17. Don't let this will be at the Academy Awards this year. I don't know what it's going to be nominated for, but there's no way the Academy is going to overlook it entirely.
I don't really follow the Academy very well, so I don't know what they would recognize it for if they're going to recognize it for anything.
My gut tells me probably either screenwriting, maybe supporting actor for Ruffalo. I think because the Academy really loves their social satire.
Mm-hmm. Unless it's aimed at them.
Looking at the substance.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and Robert Pattinson is a really good shot, I think, at least getting a nomination for lead actor.
Can we at least talk a little bit about how great Robert Pattinson was in this movie?
Oh my god, he was amazing.
He usually plays like the heartthrob or something that's kind of brooding. And
yeah.
Here, and he has a little bit of that with Mickey 18 because he plays 2 characters and he plays them both very distinctly.
Yeah.
But Mickey 17 is very much so meek and very much so. What are the words I'm looking for to describe him? I need a thesaurus.
I think I wrote it down. I wrote some descriptors down, and chat message I had with a few people
Okay.
talking about how good having 2 Robert Pattinsons are.
Oh, why just stop at 2? You could have 18.
18 Robert. That's too many. I couldn't keep up with 18 Robert Pattinsons. I could probably barely keep up with 1 if we're being honest.
But yeah, he portrays a really interesting character this time. I put down in my notes that, at least from what I've seen, the Batman showed that he can be more than just the heartthrob. But
oh yeah.
But this one shows that he can do it well. He can act. He's not just a pretty face.
Compassionate and gentle were the terms I used to describe Mickey 17.
Gentle.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, because him and Nasha, I think, have a really good relationship.
Oh yeah, I really appreciate that they emphasized that despite all the variations the Mickeys undertook throughout all his iterations, she always loved him. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciated that. I kind of wish we saw more of that throughout the movie. Another reason I would have liked this movie to be told linearly. Because we're hit with that idea the moment it becomes relevant, right? Mm-hmm. As opposed to having that built throughout the movie and shown to us over the course of the movie.
I'm kind of okay with them just kind of dropping that on us. Because maybe it's just me in my cold, disgusted, and jaded heart. Whenever I see a romance on film that kind of builds as the film goes, I kind of feel like there hasn't been enough time for me to accept it. And when they just sort of drop it on me, I feel like that's all been done off screen. I don't need to worry about that.
All right, fair enough, I guess. That does not make sense to me, but okay. Also, I did find that at first their relationship was a bit like dropped on you because it seems like they just met and that night they started having sex.
Right after being told they weren't allowed to.
That's another thing that made me think of Musk with Kenneth Marshall. Because Musk, you kind of have to read between the lines a little bit, but it's not that hard to tell if you look at him. He's kind of got this very strong natalist bent about him. And I think this is... I'm getting really political here, but I think this is...
politics!
This is rooted in a very eugenicist idea. I think that Musk is a hardcore eugenicist.
Oh, yeah.
And that he believes that... him having children or smart, rich, wealthy people having children is like the ultimate good that they can do for the world. Because their superior genetics can then progress the world forward. And so you also have that idea with Kenneth Marshall where he is doing a lot to control the breeding of his expedition.
What I like about Kenneth Marshall and his character is that he's not just one straw man.
Right.
The way that he manipulates religion and science together. It shows him like the cloning technology is kind of blasphemous to them, but he still utilizes it for the good of the mission.
Right. And because it's obviously a source of essentially free labor.
Yes. I wonder who else that could come. Sorry. That I have a little thing in my throat. I guess my question now is, do you recommend Mickey 17?
No. Absolutely I do. I think this is darn near it's definitely the best movie to come out this year so far.
Well, it's March.
It's March, but that's why I can say that with such confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much everyone in it turns in a stellar performance. The writing's on point. There are some rough patches, I think, with the way that it's structured, and I think Mark Ruffalo could have done a little bit more with his performance to bring it out of just being, this is Trump satire, the whole way through. But those are really minor complaints when you're talking about a movie this well-written and this interesting.
I have to agree with that. I say that the film is definitely worth a watch. It's definitely... If you're not going to see it in theaters, then watch it on streaming, because it's coming streaming very quickly, sadly. I think it's biting satire, and I think that it's a really fun watch.
Yeah!